would be on differentiating news broadcast in a cluttered world of information. To discuss the same, may I please welcome on stage with a big round of applause. Can we please put our hands together for our esteemed set of experts? May I kindly request each one of you to please be seated on your respective seats so that we could start.
The next session is going to be very interesting, so please don't leave. It's about news, and news is what keeps you engaged.
Definitely, yes. Absolutely right, sir. So may I please welcome on stage, first of all, Mr. Rohit Chadda, who is the President and COO Digital Business Times Network. I will give applauses.
Wow.
So yes, thank you.
That's one good-looking young man. Thank you. Welcome.
Okay. Now may I request Mr. Atul Saraf, Chairman and Managing Director, Sabot One Private Limited. Please welcome, sir.
That's one good-looking old man.
We have Ms. Litisha Panda, Business Development Officer, Odisha Television Network. Please welcome the gorgeous woman out there.
That's one gorgeous young lady. Welcome.
We would now like to welcome Mr. Hemant Jain, Senior Executive Vice President, also Head of Digital Business, Lokmat Media Private Limited.
And that's
Please
one
welcome.
happy Hemant. Welcome, Hemant.
Mr. Wanvari, you can take it over from here.
Guys, can you sit down? Please don't vacate the room. I've invested a lot of energy into getting this session together. And Litisha has flown all the way from Odisha. That's the problem of being the last session of the day. Anyway, you all heard the earlier session, right? You were part of it. News. We are running short on mics. Can we have another mic here, please? You have a mic. Oh, okay. As far as your network is concerned, what are the challenges that news television is facing in terms of, can you be part of the pay TV ecosystem, and is it substantial revenues? This is to Rohit.
See, this is a very difficult question. When you ask people that will they pay for content, and then when you talk about news and then you ask people will they pay for news, I think people pay for anything that they find value in. And we've seen that, I think, from a network perspective, we are present in both general news as well as business news. And I think we are one of the few networks that don't have, we are not FTV, we are not free. We do charge for our news and people are happy to pay. We are also #1 in English news channel in the country. So and it's a paid channel. So I think that answers the question. But I think, yeah, so I mean, to cut a long story short, I think people pay for what they see value in. If you give them content which is commoditized, which is the same on each and every platform, then you obviously people won't pay for you, because if you're putting your content behind a paywall and it's the same as on 10 other platforms, then they'll actually move to the other platform and view that. But if you're giving them premium content, if you're giving them value, then they will definitely pay for content.
Yeah, but if I look across all the channels, I think they all look the same. You have the same debate show at prime time. Maybe somebody shouts louder, maybe somebody's shouting a little softer, maybe somebody's polite, somebody's impolite. And the guests are sometimes doing the rotation from one studio to another, especially on certain debates. So differentiation, is it happening? And most of them reflect one point of view, which is the stated point of view. I won't go beyond that. It's a political statement I'll make if I go beyond that.
No. So, see, essentially, it's a matter of demand and supply, right? If there is demand, then you'll create content that there is demand for. Today we say that, that all channels are showing debates and all of that jazz. Format of news has changed over the past few years that you would have seen. Earlier, news formats were different. Now news formats are different. And that's primarily to cater to the demand. Had audiences not been interested in that kind of format that we are showing today, editors would take notice and stop doing that. So if today people stop tuning into a debate at 9 or at 8 or whatever, right? Then you'd anyway see editors seeing the drop in numbers and they'll stop doing that format, they'll try a new format. I mean, in digital, that's what we do, right? We do different kinds of content.
You're more experimental on digital.
Yes,
But
you are
on
more experimental.
On television,
On television as well, I'd say. So that's why I said that it's a matter of numbers, right? That's what happens on digital, that's what happens on TV. Every Thursday they're looking at numbers. If they're seeing numbers coming in, then they're continuing the same format. If today you stop tuning into any editor's debate and that editor sees a drop in numbers, then they'll be forced to think and do something differently.
Okay.
Because one person created a particular format and somebody sees something working, then you obviously start doing a similar thing as well. So while you're right that in terms of formats they're similar, but that's the nature of the business, right? You're trying to engage the same audience. So you need to give them what they're looking for.
Absolutely. So now I'll move on to a regional player. Litisha, your mother did a fabulous job in building the OTV network. Now you're taking it to the next level. So my questions earlier that I put earlier, there's so much similarity in the news business. Can there be a pay TV business as far as news television? Pay TV for you all would be a minuscule amount, I think, out of your revenues compared to advertising. So it's what about 4%, 5%?
Not really, actually.
It's higher.
So subscription revenues are fairly fair. I mean, they're a fair amount. I can't obviously share numbers.
Percentage-wise?
I mean, like I said, I can't really share numbers, but they're a fair double-digit number.
For you, okay.
Yeah.
So what about, do you think television news is differentiated enough for it to command pay TV revenues?
Well, regionally, no. Because I think we've heard a lot on the side where India is a tough market to crack when it comes to revenue, right? When you want to get people to pay. So, and advertising, I think, is the larger aspect that we have to look at. And, as we entered the digital age, we thought that guessing would be would be a thing of the past. But here we are, there's so much uncertainty, and we're still debating as to what is the more reliable, more sustainable revenue stream. And for regional media, pay TV may not so much, for news, be a good idea.
You all are free currently.
We're free to air throughout the country.
Hemant, you're part of the Lokmat group. So as far as building the pay TV ecosystem, we're seeing an erosion happening in cable TV. We are seeing an erosion happening in DTH in terms of subscriber numbers. We are seeing revenues disappearing from broadcasters. What do you think is the future of news as a pay TV offering?
I think so. What is really changing for all of us today is the shift in consumer behavior. There was a point of time as kids, we were all glued to television channel, and there were different formats and genre of content which we used to consume. I think so with mobile, everything has changed. And I could tell you that over the last 15 years to now, there has been a significant shift in the consumer behavior. So with 97% of the Indian audience today consuming content on mobile, news also is very well a part of that same genre of content which people are consuming on mobile phones. Now, the moment people are consuming on mobile, the most interesting part for anyone who's into the business of news creation is to ensure that you are available where you have the consumer going and consuming content. So it's like setting up a shop in a large mall where you have very high footfalls. So be it YouTube, be it Facebook, be it Daily Hunt, be it GeoTV app, be it your own OTT app, I think so as a publisher, as a media owner, it completely depends on your business model and your judgment in terms of where you want to distribute your content. So just to kind of conclude to your question, I believe the two most important aspects which have really changed over the last 10 years, 15 years, one is also the whole journey of content creation. So what you see on a linear news television today is a format which is more in terms of breaking news and top 5 and top 10 and top 20.
And views.
And views and debates. But the moment you look at digital first channel like ours or the print or the Wire or the BBC, we are not chasing breaking news. We do follow-up stories with in-depth analysis, and there is a very different audience for that. And I also see there is a merit in doing a hybrid model, which is part of your programming is live on the on events which are very, very, burning, with burning issues around you. And 80 to 75% of your programming is more site content, more research-based, etc. So I believe that the whole news genre has completely changed over the last 10, 15 years. And it's time for many of us or you to adapt yourself to the changing consumer behavior and dynamics.
No, but you didn't answer my question on pay TV. Is news television, you're part of the Lokmat group, which runs a TV station, which is a regional TV station. So, Marathi, if I'm correct. So, do you think you can command a pay TV side, a subscription side?
You're talking in terms of digital, on
I'm
digital,
talking about television
as a linear TV?
as a linear TV.
See, we need to also ask ourselves the question in terms of what percentage of people and time spent on linear television, say 10 years back, to what is the time spent today. So if you look at a music television like MTV, they did this whole evolution 10 years back. The time spent on digital was 8x of the time spent on the terrestrial linear television. So while I'm sure as India has moved from 2.5G to 3G to 4G and now 5G, more and more people in tier 2, tier 3 towns, which are very large television consuming audiences today, will also gradually move to being mobile news television viewers. And in India, if I have to give a correlation to some of the print publishers who have tried to, on digital platforms, go behind the paywalls, the only success story which currently comes to my mind is The Hindu. Hindu is the only newspaper media brand in the country which has been able to create a very successful subscription model. And in India, when you look at genres like news and music, most of us believe that it should come free to us and it is a birthright. So I'm not very, very bullish in terms of when many of the news channel on digital I can talk about, when they go pay TV, what is the size of the business we are talking about compared to the current subscription model they enjoy in the linear terrestrial television model?
I'll add to that. See, I mean, it's not a yes or no. It's not a yes or no thing. It actually depends on language. It depends on who you're targeting, what you're targeting for. I'll give you a simple example. Even in our network, our English channel is paid. Our English news channel is paid, while our Hindi channel is free. So on Hindi, we are trying to go for reach. We are trying to increase audiences. We want to increase reach, and hence we choose to keep it free. Whereas on English, we believe that our audiences are affluent enough to actually, and we give them enough value in the form of content so that they pay us, and hence we keep that paid. So I think, will people pay? Yes, if they see value, they will pay. At the end of the day, but why isn't everybody charging? Because everybody has their own strategy of going after reach / subscription revenue. The example that he gave around Hindu is a very, very good example. So they care more about their revenues than just getting user numbers on Comscore. And hence they believe that it's fine, we'll put our content behind paywall, and we'll only give our content to people who value our content.
Sure. So I'm going to move on to Mr. Saraf. He's a cable operator, plus he's also an aggregator. So he's part of the 7-Star Group, which is a force in Mumbai. So as a cable operator, I'll come to you as an aggregator later. Do you face demand from your subscribers to get news, or if a news channel is shut off, it doesn't matter? And why do you think they don't call if they do? If they don't, and if they do call, why do they call?
There are hundreds of news channels putting regional and national channels. But we feel that because if we put off also, we don't get that much of pressure. And this is the only channels from where we are generating carriage today. And
landing pages.
And landing channels.
And
also,
placement.
So the fight between the news channels are very high. And during the election, it changes from state to state also. So we don't feel that any pressure will be there if we shut off any of the channels, or any channel we put on a la carte basis also, if the deal is not proper.
Okay. Yeah.
So adding to what the three gentlemen said,
Rohit and Hemant
and Mr. Saraf.
and Atul.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, when we talk about pay TV,
Yeah.
we're also deciding whether our revenue from advertising is going to flow or not. Because advertisement is dependent on viewership, like you said, the reach. And when we come into distributing on digital, then the ball game changes entirely. So yes, I think it's a different strategy in regional in different places. But regionally, in my experience and opinion, it's difficult to charge people to pay, because news, and also India, we have a thing going on that India is dominantly attracted to entertainment. So for news to survive, if you look at the ratings or the reach of an entertainment channel vis-a-vis a news channel, it's 5x, 6x, sometimes 10x. So it's difficult to say, okay, you pay for something that is not entertainment, and then compromising on the advertising revenue is sort of a risk in the regional market, at least for me.
So I get that. So there's a challenge. Yeah,
I
sorry.
can take more further. And the second part, all the pay channels, news also having their own app. So it's already available on the app, has a free to air. So getting much pay revenue from news channel is unexpected, and it will never happen.
So what you're saying, it will never happen, even if they choose to differentiate. Like Mr. Arnab Goswami started the shouting the debate, India wants to know, and everyone followed. I mean, of course, it was on Times Now before he started Republic. So differentiation, and I think your English channel became successful because it differentiated it initially. Now everyone's looking the same. So even if you differentiate, you feel that, and you offer certain special programming, it will not work as a pay service.
So that's the thing, right? So like you said, so Times Now did differentiate in terms of the content that Times Now was providing, and hence Times Now was number one and still is, right? But obviously when the followers always see the leader, and when they see something working, something that the leader is trying, and when they see that, they obviously try to follow and try to emulate that. And that is always bound to happen. I mean, a very crude example would be, even if you look at the entertainment OTTs, for example, that you have a show on Netflix that becomes very successful, and immediately, a few months later, you see Amazon Prime doing a similar kind of show. Then you see a Z5 doing a similar kind of show. So it's basically by genre, right? So you see, crime is working, and I mean,
Because television executives are working in the
so
OTT platforms now.
So it's anyways, I mean,
Yeah.
so that's why I said that it's basically you're following demand. On everything, you're following demand. If today, audiences start demanding, and I mean, it's basically a difference in audience perspective. A digital consumer has a different perspective than a live stream consumer. I wouldn't call it a broadcast consumer as such, and I'm technically saying live stream, because a live stream consumer wants to see news now, what is happening right now. He has the urgency, he values the urgency of news, and hence he is more interested in breaking news. Whereas a general digital consumer is not in a hurry to know about the news, and hence you see digital platforms or digital first platforms focusing not on breaking news, but focusing more on in-depth analysis, explainers, and actually focusing more on different kind of genres as well. They'd go into technology, auto, and all of that jazz. Now, let's say today, if you were to see that a live TV or a live stream audience starts showing interest in technology, and they want to see an iPhone review on TV, then obviously everybody will follow and start doing an iPhone review on TV. But unfortunately or fortunately, the audience is not interested in. The TV audience is not interested in that kind of genre or that kind of content. They consume that content on digital, so they don't want it live.
But the challenge that the industry faces today is because it's dependent on advertising, and a lot of it is government advertising revenue. In her case, you're not in favor with the local government. Correct me if I'm wrong. So How do you manage? All the channels are
The
trying
government
to...
is not in our favor.
The government, oh, I correct myself. The government is not in your favor. So how do you all manage? I mean, just with advertising revenue, shouldn't subscription be, even if it's running into, let's say, 3% of your revenues, that could add to your profits?
Yes. Legally, DFP and the other advertisers, legally you're not supposed to not give the number one channel. So you have grades class A, class B, class C. If you have a certain number of reach, the government is supposed to give advertisement to the class A television channels, all digital platforms. Sadly, that is not happening in Odisha. We're amidst a legal battle for that to demand that yes, we need the advertising. But I would like to emphasize on few things when it comes to advertising. Is that one, when we say TV advertising and then when we say online advertising, what is the extent of advertising on our economy? And how does that ensure that the government is putting regulations in place so that the big tech giants that are in the market, they don't get a major chunk of our revenue without giving us any, even for that matter of fact, royalty, right? That is one question. Second
By
question.
major tech giants, you mean the Googles and the
Yes.
Metas?
Yes.
But you're getting revenue for putting streaming on their platforms, right?
Yes, so this is something that we were discussing just before this session with Mr. Saraf and Mr. Jain, that we don't pay the cable operators to carry our channel.
You do sometimes?
Sometimes,
Yeah.
but the major
I think
chunk...
some of the channels pay a lot. I'm not looking at you. All the channels pay a lot, like he said.
But we pay almost to YouTube. For example, you pay 40% of your revenue share. So I pay a license fee or a carriage fee to the distributors, but I do not pay a share of my ad revenue to the distributors. But here on digital, I pay 40% of my advertising revenue to these social media platforms. And is there a clarity as to, there's no quantifying as to where is this, where is this money coming from? Is this coming for branding? Is this coming for direct sales? Who are these brands that are advertising so heavily? What is deciding the CPM rate for different regions? Why are certain languages not monetized? There are a billion questions that we have, and that is why television has been regulated over the years, and that is why everybody has a fair field to play, whereas digitally we don't. Can I say that I can compete with the Times, or can I say I can compete with any other national? No, I'm not saying I can. Even in television, the advertising rates are different. But at least there's a level playing field for me to enter. There's no barrier.
Okay, so my question, differentiating, they've differentiated by following a certain line. They've been affected with government advertising, not coming their way, in a way. So will the national networks do the same? I'm not putting you on the spot. I know I am, but I'm not intending to put you on the spot.
Oh, no, you can. There's no problem. I think that's the fun of the panel, no? So, I mean, when you're talking about differentiation, it generally does tend to happen. I don't think the larger channels, the national channels, the national networks, while of course there is, there is this certain way that government does spend on news. Obviously, they need to, because they also need to take the word out there. They are also advertisers. But I don't think that's anyways a substantial amount for any national network's income. So there, I think it's all channels deciding, all editors deciding what stance they want to take, what they believe that they want to communicate on their channel, and that's what they do. Coming back to your question around subscription versus ad revenue.
I believe, CNN started as a subscription-only channel. It had the voice of independence. In fact, Mr. Donald Trump wanted to kill the bloody beast, as he said, because they went so much against the grain that was going on. And I'm sure the next election also, they'd probably crush him to the ground if they can. And he'll try to crush them, but he won't succeed. So it began as a pay TV service.
Yeah, so I mean, I won't comment on that piece. I'll conveniently choose to stay away. But where I was getting at is that, and I always say content, I don't say news, because when you ask me that will people pay for news, I always term that as content, because news is also a form of content. And hence I always say that people pay for what they value, and and platforms have to charge for their content, otherwise they will be unable to service their consumer. A very good example would also be, and it's actually, it needs to make sense, right? There's an investment, it's a simple business. There's an investment into content, and hence you're looking at certain revenues to pay for that content, to pay for that staff, and to pay for everything that you are doing, right? Very convenient and simple examples would be, let's say a Hotstar, a Disney Hotstar, where even though you are watching a cricket match behind a paywall, but there is still ads that are showing up, because they know that that's the kind of investment that they made into that content, and hence they need to do both. We are aware that Netflix is also evaluating.
They've gone ahead with
Yeah,
Microsoft.
So they are also trying to do a combination of both. MX Player has started off as a completely free AVOD platform, and then they introduced SVOD as well.
SWOD, yeah, but that Nikhil is still getting his handle
Absolutely.
on
I mean, so where, at what stage, obviously, I mean, I don't want to comment on who's successful, who's not. Success is something that is determined by the core team that is actually doing that. I don't think externally, sitting outside, we can decide who is
No, I
successful
just said
and who's not.
he's getting his handle around it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And like I was saying, so it's actually a business decision. Even when you mentioned Republic, even when we talk about Republic and when Republic was launched, Republic was also free to air. But then eventually, they also, at least their English channel, they also decided that they didn't want to give it free to air. So, I mean, it's a matter of business decision, and I will always stick to the fact that if you give value to the consumer, the consumer will give value back to you.
Yep. Hemant? Or have I put you to sleep?
So I have a little different view because, say for example, your core origin was being a news television channel. So you have made a very large capex investments in terms of setting up a news television channel, and your primary business model there is creating content and getting viewers to view the content and monetizing it through two means. One is through ad-funded model, and the other is through getting into a subscription model, through cable, through dish, etc. Now the same news broadcaster with the growth in digital audience also felt the need to expand the footprint of its presence or distribution by distributing the same feed at zero cost on YouTube and Facebook. I hope all of you would agree that your cost of distributing the same linear feed from television, I mean both of you are here, would be almost negligible. You just pass on the stream to YouTube and Facebook. They do the heavy bulk lifting of your streaming costs, their customer acquisition costs, their cost of servicing the customer, and in the process, they share revenues with you, what they make from directly going out, reaching out to advertisers, or through their online bidding systems, etc. So that becomes one model for a broadcaster to extend its existing footprint from television to digital. The second model is where a lot of people, are very confident about their existence, and they say, hey, I'm going to launch my own OTT player, which involves that you have to invest yourself beyond content, which you're already creating, which is at zero cost, into technology. And because you have built app, there is this whole thing about investing in acquiring customers, which is also a marketing cost, a very large marketing cost. And when I look around, I still haven't come across a huge success story in the OTT space today in India, because most of the OTT players have to bear three very critical cost structures, which is cost of creating content, cost of tech, and cost of customer acquisition. So I fundamentally believe that the moment you are able to service your core business model, which is, say, news broadcasting over linear television, everything which you are trying to do incremental over and above that, you have to be more cost efficient and wise in terms of how you are trying to monetize that part. And if you get that formula right, uh, I think so, then you should not really be worried so much about what's your revenue share, what's your yield efficiency, etc. Because what we have also seen many a times when we moved from print to digital and digital to video, because obviously you go to text and then video, you are, because of your ability to create valued content in a format which never existed in your core DNA, you start attracting newer set of audiences who never, say, for example, read your newspaper. Now that's the beauty. What is it that you are creating and with what kind of objective you are creating? I believe there is always a space for monetization. And we also have to be wary of the fact that if I look at all the genres which exist today in video, on digital, news is today attracting the lowest CPMs or CPVs because most of the advertisers in India don't find news, politics, current affairs to fall into the brand safety guidelines. So if I am earning, for example, on my entertainment and lifestyle channel, I'm earning 80 to 90 rupees CPM on YouTube. On news, I'm earning 28 to 30 rupees CPM. It is not...
Seriously earning 80 to 90 rupees?
Yeah, yeah.
I know people who are earning less than 20 and 25, 30,
Yeah,
40.
I'm
That's
talking
the lowest
about in
yield.
terms of lifestyle and entertainment.
We're
But on
non-existent.
news, news,
I don't know which channels are... Anyone in the audience, are your channels getting 80, 90 rupees? Anyone there? Wow, you're one of the fortunate ones. 40, 50.
no. See,
The lifestyle and entertainment.
if it is original content, you can even go up to 100 rupees CPM.
Not with the Indian market. It's the lowest cost. I mean, YouTube.
No, Anil, I can actually...
Is that true? Is Zoom getting 80, 90 rupees on YouTube?
So it's a higher I mean, it's a good CPM number.
Very good.
Let's say it's a good CPM number that he's
40,
talking
50.
about. Yeah, I mean, it's a good number.
Yeah, that's a healthy number compared to
So
anyone.
Anil, what happens specifically in regional language, you don't have too many players. And if
So
you-
as a regional player,
yeah,
you're
so
getting
if
that.
you
Okay.
have a good
I should
quality
get into the regional space.
yeah, if you have a good
I
quality
don't think so.
content,
Okay, she disagrees. That no. And she's a powerful player in the East.
I disagree because I think it's also the demand of the language.
Yeah.
Odia on the website, on Google, is not recognized. So there's no Google ads playing on Odia language websites at all, right? And when it comes to the YouTube CPM rate, it's the lowest in the country.
so if
Odia.
I look at Marathi language today, it is if you look at the entire internet language consumption pie in India, of the 720-30 odd Indian language internet users, close to 540 million are Indic language content users. So English is around 199 million, Hindi is around 220 odd million. The third largest language is Marathi with around 55 million users, followed by Bengali, and then you have the southern languages. Even if you look at from a GDP point of view or a geography point of view, Maharashtra is the second largest state in the country from a population standpoint, geography standpoint, and the GDP contribution standpoint. So what typically happens, as she rightly said, when you look at states like Odisha or even states like West Bengal, while West Bengal has a very high population in terms of consuming internet content, content on internet, but when you look at spends of advertisers to reach out to people in that pocket of India, that budget which is available is very small. So it also, there are 2-3 factors. It depends on the language, it depends on the geography, and it depends upon is that market one of the favorable markets for advertisers to invest their dollars in.
So my thing is, I'm pretty appalled.
It's about cohort, right? It's about the user cohort that you're getting. That's why I was talking I was talking earlier about demand and supply, that if you have the right kind of cohort, then that cohort is willing to pay.
But it's programmatic on YouTube, so I mean,
Yes, it is. But then
So
it's
co-
always
cohorts
programmatic.
don't really-
It's always programmatic. Everybody is looking at the end of the day, all advertisers are looking at ROI. They'll
Yeah.
they'll spend
No,
on a
and then the
platform.
problem with it is that it's all the lowest pricing which is coming on YouTube now. That's the challenge we are facing as a company too. We've seen ARPUs drop by, CPMs drop by 50% over the last 1.5 year. And
So-
so has everyone else.
Yes, so essentially, see, because that's also because there are a ton of creators that are coming out there. So supply is increased. Earlier, you would have seen, so let me go to the pre-4G era, right? Like if when you went to the pre-4G era, the supply of video was very, very limited. Video inventory was very, very limited. So if you had video inventory, you would have typically be able to sell your video inventory very easily. At least from, if not from direct, but from indirect sources, network sources, you would probably fulfill entire video inventory. But after the whole internet revolution in the country and data charges becoming almost negligible for consumers, what has happened is that everybody started consuming video, and hence video inventory has now become in abundance. So OTT platforms today find it difficult to actually fill their entire inventory, and hence CPMs go down because there's a much higher supply than there is demand. So automatically then that puts price pressure, and the CPMs start to
But
reduce.
yeah,
So,
I get that. So, but I'm pretty appalled as an industry observer for 40 years that uh, an industry has, if I look at even all the news channels, there are 400 of them, I think, or 350 out of the 800, 900 news channels. If each of you all take a decision to go pay TV, you all won't be so dependent on advertising. You all will not be swayed by advertising. Though the print industry has given us direction that, subscription revenues and, cover prices are not something you can depend on. But going in the long term, industry needs to look at that. Imagine if 300 of y'all or 400 of y'all, the NBF and the NBA get together and they say, listen, guys, we are not going to be free. There is no doubt the consumer will pay. Whether it's Hindi, Marathi, regional, whichever language, the consumer will have to pay. Or he may go to Twitter, he may go to the internet. But there has to be an effort made by the industry to grow the industry pie rather than competing with each other and cutting each other's throats. The cable operators will benefit. You can add, I'd say, at even 40 paise per month per channel, you can add hundreds of crores to the whole pay TV economy and to your own bottom lines. I'd like to leave that as my last thoughts. I've been pushing that news channels need to go pay because that will give you the independence to telecast the way you want, to air the views you want, possibly be more forthright, be more open, and be more truth-telling, no offense meant, to any news channel. So even I need to think about my side going pay at some stage. So,
I differ on this.
okay, good. Now there's some debate.
Because many news channels are regional and it is backed by political parties. And the political parties have a deep pockets to give and they need the universe. If it becomes a pay channel for MSOs, it will be another source of revenue to give to these 300 channels, which is not practical at all. Because already the revenues of the MSOs are coming down, the customer base is coming down due to OTT and the channels available free of cost on YouTube and on their apps. So I differ that to get money out of the news channel is very, very difficult. Even Times and the other NDTV and all, they are hardly making any revenue from, I think so, from the subscription.
I think there has to be no restriction irrespective on the news you telecast and the way you telecast. I think the objective of any news channel, at least for us at Odisha TV, has always been free, fair, unbiased. We report, you decide. That has always been there. That news channels are here to report. News channels are not here to give opinions. News channels are not here to tell the public what to decide on. So I think that the news channel should do, irrespective of the fact whether it goes pay TV or advertising. And the government themselves have set this rule that according to the reach, the advertisement preference goes to certain channels and it is equally distributed to channels in this category, this category, this category. And when that is by law, it is given by the government, I think they have to abide by it. Crossing that line is something that as an industry and as everybody in the industry we should oppose. And like he said, some channels may be backed by political parties, hence they are quiet or they're not coming out about it. But some channels who suffer because they're not funded by any political party like ours, where do we go when, like you said, 3% of the revenue that comes from the government marketing also is money. It's every rupee is important. I can't say, okay, I'm going to do this and you don't pay me. It's my right. This is what the law says and you have to pay me. So I think irrespective of being pay TV, depending on pay TV for subscription or depending on advertising for subscription, I think as a news channel and as a business, we should be able to function on neutral grounds. And we should be able to abide by the law that has been given by the government itself on advertisement
Well
marketing.
said. On that note, let's ask the audience for questions. Yeah. We've got quite a few hands. It's a small audience, but they've got questions. And identify yourself first, please.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for great insights. We discussed about the...
Your name, please.
Yeah, I'm Jay Sudha. I'm into the content creation side. And my question is that we discussed about consumption, consumer behavior, and all such things. How do you see in 2024, this November itself, the exploitation of AI technology side, the AI as well as the data science, getting into your kind of businesses models?
So are you all using AI and data sciences to serve your customers? Are
Yes,
you using
yes.
AI and data sciences?
Yeah, I think I can speak for a few networks that I'm aware of that that there has been some headway there. There is some use of some AI, and a lot of data science actually. If you look at the evolution of the industry over, and this is obviously mostly on the digital side, but when you look at the evolution of the industry over the past few years, you'll see earlier most of the users that all of the digital news platforms had, or the digital platforms of the news companies had, all of them were guest users. Everybody's moved away from them. They've realized the importance of identifying the user, tracking user preference, and actually giving user what they prefer to consume. And that's where the primary use of AI and data science has already started happening in the industry. In addition to that, AI typically, and I can say that because I've used that, or I've tried that in a couple of my stints as well, where we've tried to actually create content using AI as well. We've seen some success in some parts, some not so successful POCs. But I think that's also the way to go in terms of scaling content. Using AI will become extremely important in scaling content with minimal human intervention.
So how?
So I don't know if you've heard with respect to Apple's privacy updates. So until last year, we have been discussing that how data is the new oil for the entire world. But when Apple came with this new privacy update, there has been a survey by this app called Flurry. And it said that when you give consumers the choice to enable tracking, 1 out of 5 consumers say yes to tracking, whereas the other 4 say no. So that clearly says that even though, yes, it is good for us as businesses to be able to track the consumers and have data science backed decision making, I think with Apple, now GA4 and Metaverse, I think the privacy laws are going to increase and the consumer may not want to track, so that limits our use of AI and data going forward, in my opinion.
Okay. Any other questions? I saw a question. Oh, go ahead.
Hi, Rajesh Khandelwal here. Most of the news channels do have website, and maximum people do get a notification on their cell phone itself. So and so is the news, hot news, etc. And most of the people are really afraid about the news channel also because usually there's a jargon. Nation wants to know. God se dekho. And the people are scared. अरे यार बच्चे के सामने क्या तकलीफ होगी? So if at all the changing the trend a little bit and going with the things in a systematic way, and as Anilji said, going with the pay system, won't that be beneficial? Definitely, most of the news channels are owned by the government sector, but even then they do have certain rights in regards to certain parties also. So that will be beneficial for the news channel and showing in a better way.
Of
And
course.
one more thing, as you add on right now, that privacy and everything, India's major population is in the rural sector. So they don't know much about the privacy. And that is still, I would say, minimum 5 to 10 years to come across for the privacy for them. Please.
So,
So-
sorry, एक बार I just get a chance to promote my channel. ना. जो ये भाई बोलता है ना, नेशन वांट्स टू नो, आप उसका चैनल मत देखो, आप टाइम्स नाउ देखो. So सबसे पहले तो आपकी वो प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व हो जाएगी कि बच्चों के आगे क्या देखना है. Right? You watch Rahul Shiv Shankar. You don't watch that gentleman.
Some data is also available. Post-pandemic, around 3 to 4% of news channels have gone off the air. That is just because of the revenue which is not been generated. So getting again to get them pay around 300 channels, I think so 50% will go off.
Good. Less of choice.
So see, I remember now when we were 20 years back, and we had a local news channel called In Time running in Hinduja network itself only. City Cable News was separate, and their revenue was more than what today a national channel is earning. I used to, as an advertiser, I used to give 1700 rupees per 10 second. Now, I think so national channels are not able to generate that revenue, maybe except Times Now and NDTV or India TV.
Okay.
So, yeah, to answer your question from my perspective, what I've observed in my experience is that India has the most spoiled customer. They want less, they want good product, good value, but want to pay less money. And some don't want to pay money also, they want for free. So in a situation like that, for regional, news channels, I'm not talking about entertainment. If I say my entertainment side of the business, I will take completely pay TV. Am I going to get money? Hell yes. But is that going to happen with news? I doubt. Who doesn't like a stable income? If each of my viewer is ready to pay to watch my news channel, then I think I'll be very happy to. But is that the case when we look at the consumer behavior in India, especially in Odisha from the market I come in? The answer is no. That is why I would probably say that maybe pay TV it may not be such a good option for me, because a consumer or a viewer sitting in Delhi may be able to pay $100 or $50. Whereas in a state like Odisha, they may not even be willing to pay 10 rupees for a particular channel. Right, so that sort of does not give me a fair playing field where I can depend entirely on my consumers to pay me so that I can rely on that revenue. Hence, only one stream is not, dependent. And your second question was on data.
Over there. That was there.
No, he also asked another question, I think.
It was on the same line. Like even if I told you talk about the AI also, Odisha, the major people are from
Yes.
the rural sector.
Yes. So coming to that, until now, Google, YouTube, Facebook, all of them have been sharing data because it comes under the sign up terms and conditions of the sign up of the app. When you sign up on their platforms, that's the terms and conditions. But now, in their changing law, you will have a clear pop-up option where they will say, do you want, in any language, that is now everybody is a smartphone user and everybody uses their phones in the language they want to be used. So there is a separate, it's not a part of the sign up terms and conditions agreement anymore. It's going, whenever you download an app and whenever you're going to sign up, it's going to specifically ask you, do you want this app to track you? And yes and a no option is there, and it's very easy for the consumer, be it rural or urban, to say just no, meko ads mat bhejao. That's the basic understanding.
Yeah.
So I'll just answer your question. The advertiser money would go where the consumer would go. I think so. It is. It's a very, I can understand it's challenging time, but we also have to really spend a little time trying to understand and follow the shift in consumer behavior. I'm sure all of you would be seeing what happened during pandemic. There is 30% of newspaper reader who would never come back to reading a newspaper. There is a shift which has happened. Can I undo that shift? My answer is no. Which means that as a newspaper owner, you have to find a better model or create a much bigger scaled model on digital for you to embrace the future.
Yeah, but one second, I'm just going to step in. Digital is so proliferated, it's so very, very fragmented. And you have loyal audiences for niche products, for mass products,
Yeah,
but
so-
it's getting even more fragmented.
So I'm coming to that. See, what happens is you also have to bring about a shift on your in your content programming. So even if you're a broadcaster today, as I said some time back, you have a linear feed which you're creating for your core business, which is getting distributed on digital. I'm saying what is stopping you from creating content which is exclusive? Now let's look around. I still remember when I used to drive the music business on digital for Hangama, I always used to say, if you want a specific Bhool Bhulaiya song, it is only with me. So whether it is Airtel, whether it is Vodafone, whether it is Tata, they had to buy it from me to give it to their customer. Now how is it different in today's life? If my son wants to watch a specific Chelsea match, which is being streamed on Sony Live, I pay for the subscription. If I want to watch the release of a Hindi Bollywood flicker on say, Amazon Prime, you pay 30 rupees a la carte or you pay for subscription. You also have to understand that news today is more of a commodity business. I mean, sometimes even before the news the breaking happens on television, it's already out there on Twitter. So we have to be very cognizant of the shift in these dynamics, and we will need to work on creating hybrid models. So there can be part of your content programming which is exclusive. Say, for example, a very, very exclusive interview of your news editor with Narendra Modi or with Warren Buffett, which you could say is an a la carte, 10 rupees, 20 rupees, 25 rupees pay-per-view model. So, I mean, it's not a 0-1 right now. We have to figure out different kinds of charging models. So I could just leave this with a small thing I had over the years. India is the largest micro-transaction economy in the world. 99% of our 800 million mobile phone users or subscribers, you can in fact take it at 1 billion, if you look at the connections, are prepaid users. On an average, an Indian recharges the mobile wallet 3 times. So if you do the multiplication, it makes India the largest microtransaction economy in the world. And I used to, at one point of time, run the largest, I would say, value-added services business, where the consumer on a feature phone used to pay money through his mobile wallet. Now, and on an average, a user in India, a mobile user, does not have more than 12 to 16 rupees at any given point of time. And that is the reason why he recharges. So when you look at pricing, the moment you have anything which is sachet pricing, so India and China, the two only unique countries or digital economies in the world where sachet pricing works much better than talking about a 99 rupee pricing, 149 rupee pricing, etc. Because he's happier to give you 5 rupees, 10 rupees pay-per-view as a sachet model than go in for subscription. So I think so this is really one of the best times. Rather than all of us getting frustrated, I think so each of us has to come using content, tech, innovation and distribution and marketing to look at creating newer models for consumer to come and pay you. So it starts, I firmly believe, it starts with asking yourself, how can I create a very, very differentiated content for someone to pay to me? And that customer could be a B2C customer or it could be a B2B customer, someone who's aggregating your content. It could be a mobile operator, it could be a news aggregator, it could also be YouTube. If you think YouTube does not pay minimum guarantees, you're mistaken. to the music industry in India when they entered, YouTube actually doled out minimum guarantees to the top 5, top 6 music labels. So they could also do if tomorrow you start creating exclusive content for which they believe there's a very large market who would pay for subscription.
Yeah,
just
I think we've out of time. This lady is looking sleepy, and yes, you are.
No.
You had a late night. I know you,
Not at
Namita.
all, not at all.
Yeah. So I think
They have put my mic off. Don't say you're sleepy.
I
They have
didn't.
put my
Okay.
mic off.
All right. I think let's call it a day. And a big thank you to all of you all on the panel, because I think this could be a never-ending debate that I believe I will stand by it, that news needs to go pay. I believe to retain quality and the openness and freedom, we need to go pay over time. The earlier the better. The pay TV industry will benefit. The viewer in India will benefit. And there can be arguments against it. I'm not God. Yeah.
I can tell you that all news guys want to be paid. Everybody likes subscription money. It's just that the user needs to be willing to pay the subscription
Yes.
money, and everybody will go pay. It's basically about consumer behavior and nothing else.
The NBA and NBF get together and they go pay, the MSOs and the consumer will pay. All of them will pay. It's just that there has to be unanimity and oneness of view. And I'll sound this off to MK.
Somebody needs to bell the cat.
All right.
Who's that going to be?
Okay. Thank you very much. I hope this panel was interesting and I didn't make
Yes,
it
it
boring
was.
and they didn't make it
Thank
boring.
you.
It was. It
Thank you
was
very much.
interesting. So